Hello, hello, good morning. It's almost lunchtime. And we are talking about building interoperable game worlds. I feel like I need to say that with like grandeur before lunch. I'm Jen Sanasie. I host two shows on CoinDesk. I'm joined by JacobC.eth, founder of Hyperplay, and Eric Bishard, developer relations lead at MetaMask. And we are going to be talking about Hyperplay and MetaMask and why they're working together to build the future of gaming. So welcome. Thanks for sitting down with me, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jacob, I first have to say congratulations. You just closed a round of $12 million. Let's give Jacob a round of applause for the $12 million. Tell me about what you're going to do with the money.
So we're building the first Web3 native game launcher. We want to create censorship-resistant channels of distribution for game developers, so that game developers are no longer being deplatformed by monopolies like Apple, by monopolies like Steam, and no longer being taxed by these Web 2 platforms. So we're creating a channel for Web3 game developers to get directly to their customers, and we're also making it better to making it easier to build immersive game experiences and game worlds. So we actually pass the player's MetaMask wallet directly into native or browser-based games. We have an overlay, which is really similar to the Steam overlay. If people are familiar with Steam, you know that it overlays chat windows, notifications, your friends' requests, achievements on top of your games. We're basically doing the same thing, but we're overlaying the player's wallet directly into the game, so the player can do transactions without leaving the context of the game. They can discover all the games in one place, and we actually aggregate the Epic Game Store, the GOG store, and we have our own game store. All three of those stores are in the Hyperplay application. So we've raised this funding to be able to really scale up and build the best possible game launcher for players and to build the best possible user experience. So the first step is we're going to build the best launcher. The second is we're going to build a series of incentives and questing and achievements to really bring the mass mainstream from more traditional gaming into the decentralized web, help them to discover games, and then help them to discover the entire decentralized web.
Eric, from MetaMask's perspective, why get involved in Web3 gaming? Tell us a little bit more about the partnership.
Well, I mean, MetaMask is the most interoperable and extensible wallet out there, so I think it gives game developers a great opportunity to build whatever they want to build for, especially for like Hyperplay. They get to be able to use Hyperplay's layer to be able to interact with MetaMask. So I just think it gives them the most options.
In your introduction there, Jacob, you spoke about the deplatforming of game developers. You mentioned Apple. You mentioned some other big Web 2 players. Talk to us a little bit more about the state of gaming right now. Is there a place for game developers to go?
Yeah, so the traditional business models for gaming are, as anyone who works in the gaming industry knows, they're distressed. There was business models historically when we were growing up where people spent millions of dollars and they built very high production titles. They were very risky, and players would buy them for $60 and the game would succeed or it would bust. And throughout the last couple decades, we saw this transition from traditional games to mobile game models that were really heavily based on pay-to-win models. And the developers who made these don't enjoy making pay-to-win games that the players themselves find rather thankless in many instances. And many of the players were really frustrated with these models as well. And so there's been this tension of moving things to these pay-to-win models versus the traditional model. And neither is a particularly sustainable model for game developers, and it's become more and more difficult for game developers to build the worlds that they want to build. We think that Web3 is the opportunity to build new, more immersive and extensible and more interoperable game worlds. So the developer can build things and grow from the economy that exists inside of the game. As the game's economy grows, as the game's world grows, the game developer can benefit from that. And they can start to build new kinds of interoperability between the different games and to create, like we used to say metaverse early in the Ethereum ecosystem to mean the interoperability across everything that existed in Ethereum. It didn't mean like Mark Zuckerberg's VR headset. We want to have these worlds that really persist and become interoperable and that are extending over time, and where different contributors are contributing and building things that share the same smart contracts, where multiple games are sharing the same smart contracts, and people can build in new kinds of ways. So that's the basic grand vision for what we want to see. The state of Web3 gaming, however, has been less. It hasn't yet fulfilled on those promises. So we've seen a lot of growth in the last 2 years of Web2 games. Those games in their earliest iterations were very basic, primitive mini games. And many of them, they grew in ways that were not sustainable. A lot of players got burned out on them really quickly. And we need not a series of walled gardens that have yield farms strapped to them. We need a series of games that are immersive, delightful user experiences that build in new and innovative ways, and where the game worlds are increasingly interoperable, where there is reputation that's shared across games, where the game worlds are super new and interesting. And so that we built that overlay tech, and we made it so that you can carry your MetaMask wallet into these games, so that that interoperability that we've dreamed of actually becomes possible. If the player can't carry their wallet into the game, and you, for example, like we'll say like embedded wallets, many of the Web3 games, they try to improve the in-game transactional experience by embedding a one-game wallet into the game. And when people do this, they're forcing the player to onboard into a new wallet every single time that they play a game, which is bouncing tons of players. And then the assets that are in those wallets are not easily carried to other games. And so we thought it was very important to help people who are new onboard into a new wallet with the least friction possible. And then those people who, once they have a wallet, we have to make it where that wallet gets persisted into every game that they play. And that's really core to the vision of Hyperplay and the user experience advantages that we're bringing to Web3 gaming.
Yeah, like I might create a wallet for gaming, but I'm not going to create a new wallet for every single game that I want to play.
I want to come back to Hyperplay in just a second, but you mentioned, Mark Zuckerberg's VR headset, and another VR headset was announced recently by Apple. And I guess I would love to hear the opinion from both of you. Is there a place for these Web2 players in this interoperable future? And if so, what does that look like?
I've seen the headset from Apple. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know enough about developing games to understand how it's going to change things in Web3 gaming. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think the headset tech is becoming super cool.
All in one.
The challenge is that the mobile monopolies like Apple are trying to force transactions to go through through Apple Pay, and I think a lot of really smart and brilliant people in Web3 are working to find ways to hack around the Apple Store's policies. And they're finding ways to try to comply with it, like selling tokens through Apple Pay and making the player spend a 30% premium on those tokens, and then having the tokens then purchase the NFT. Some people have been exploring this, and it seems to be a way that Apple is sort of allowing. But these hacks are really not great for the user experience of the players. And part of why we built Hyperplay was to create a platform where the developers could build their games in the way that they want to really realize the best possible user experience for onboarding 1 billion people into the decentralized web. And then when we are winning and when we are building great user experiences, people like Apple and those monopolies will be forced to reform their policies. So we would say, like, start by building in the way that you want to build, and then we'll approach the Web 2 monopolies from a position of power.
You know, interoperability really just makes sense. I've talked to a bunch of different gamers who've expressed, you know, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on in-game items, and then I can't really do anything with them. I can't take the persona I've developed in one game to another game. I can't take the things I've earned in one game to another game. And so this makes total and complete sense to me as we sit up here on this stage. But how do you actually bring users into the games? I mean, we talk about it so much, but it really feels like gamers it's still not really clicking for them. What kind of reception have you had to Hyperplay so far, Jacob? And what kind of insights are you taking away from are you in beta or alpha?
We have an early access alpha that's available today.
From the alpha.
All of you should go and try out Hyperplay. But we are very close to a very large public beta release very soon. Sure. So I think that some of the challenges, there's a range of user experience challenges for bringing people into the decentralized web. Those range from how should the player and when should the player be onboarded into a wallet. And previously, the user experience around onboarding players into wallets was, if you were a game, you either forced the player to onboard into a new wallet, like I was talking about earlier, or you needed to send the player to go to a different site and set up the wallet. And part of what we are doing with Hyperplay is we're building this progressive onboarding feature to where if the player doesn't have a wallet, they can still install the game, they can still start playing the game, and the Hyperplay APIs, which listen for transaction requests from your game, the first time that your game makes a transaction or a signature request to the player, Hyperplay recognizes that the player doesn't have a wallet yet. And we use our overlay tech, which overlays the player's wallet on top of the game. We overlay the wallet onboarding because we recognize the player doesn't yet have a wallet. So the player can set up their MetaMask wallet while still remaining in game and never leaving the context of your game. And we're also working together with the MetaMask team to create new account types and exploring alternatives to the traditional secret recovery phrase model.
Eric, from a MetaMask perspective, how is this different than what some of the other wallets are doing as it pertains to gaming?
So how is MetaMask different from the other wallets?
How is this play for MetaMask maybe different than what some of the other wallet providers are doing?
Well, I don't really know what the other ones are doing. I know that we work closely with Jacob at Hyperplay. We've got a really great model for how all that works together. Again, going back to just MetaMask being super extensible, we have a lot of the tech needed to be able to enable them to build kind of what they want in their platform, their launcher, and share it among all their games. So, I mean, that's all I really care about. I don't really take a look at what other people are doing. So I don't really have a good answer for that.
Well, I've heard you both talk a lot about MetaMask Snaps.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so MetaMask Snaps gives developers the ability to extend MetaMask API, potentially even things like UI in MetaMask. And right now it's in a developer preview, so developers can, for things like account abstraction, this is an opportunity for developers to start playing around with account abstraction, even though it's not like already kind of available in MetaMask proper right now, but you can start building a snap, an extensible layer of MetaMask that allows for additional functionality. And I don't know when I can say when they'll be releasing it into MetaMask proper, because they haven't told me that yet, but right now I think it's developers just need to start playing around with it and understanding that they can actually build functionality that they'd normally have to wait for us to build right now without waiting for us.
Just to restate that in some way, so MetaMask Snaps is a new extensibility. MetaMask already is the most extensible wallet. It has APIs that allow you to hook into so many different things, but MetaMask Snaps allows third-party developers to build new plugins that run and extend the MetaMask wallet.
Yeah.
And so this can be everything from new account types to custom chains, like non-EVM chains. And so for us in Hyperplay, part of what we're doing to really to make the MetaMask user experience really appropriate for gaming is there are certain snaps that are coming soon, like certain chains that are used by a lot of games, but those chains are not necessarily EVM. And whether those be Starkware or Solana or Cosmos. And so we plan to make it really easy to add these custom chains to the players to the player's MetaMask wallet and to carry those into every game that they play. So we're going to have the most gaming native user experience and version and distribution of MetaMask inside of the Hyperplay desktop application.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we spoke a little bit about the alpha launch, right? We've seen people play Hyperplay at the Game 7 booth here at 3XP. Talk to me about the education that's needed from a game developer perspective and a gamer perspective. How are you approaching education when it comes to the interoperable future?
Yeah, so we have, I would say the most important way that people will learn to enter the decentralized web is just experiencing it. And so if you go to our booth here today or just when you get home, download the Hyperplay application. We have over 33 Web3 games which are listed inside of Hyperplay. And I think that people will learn a great deal from just experiencing those different games, the different ways that they're implementing Web3 use cases. There's a lot of really unique and new types of game types and genres that are not just like, here's the Web3 version of this Web2 game. It's a slightly lesser version of that game. Like we have to really innovate and move beyond that. From the perspective of a game developer becoming educated with what you can do with Hyperplay, I would really recommend taking a look at our developer docs. It's docs.hyperplaygaming.com, or you can find it at our main website, which is hyperplay.xyz. And you'll find that calling a transaction or signature request is more or less identical to the experience of having a website dApp and calling a transaction request from MetaMask. It's very, very easy. It's like interacting with the Web3 provider in a website like Web3.js or Ethers.js. If you're familiar at all with those, it'll come like second nature. And if you're not, you'll pick it up really quickly. We also have a Discord with developer support. We are very excited to help you build games. We're very, very excited to help build your game world. And we want to be the best possible partner for every Web3 game. And we want to help you find customers. We want to help you build in a more Web3 native way. And we want to build this whole ecosystem. And we want everyone to win together.
And Jacob's not just saying that. I've interviewed a bunch of the game developers that Jacob's working with, and they've all said that the support that they get from Hyperplay has been phenomenal. They're all very excited about the solution because they've experienced some of the problems that you outlined at the beginning of this conversation. So he's not just saying that because he's the founder. It is really, really true. I think we can't be sitting here at a Web3 gaming conference and me not ask you this. What's the most exciting use case that you've seen so far for Web3 gaming? What's that gold star that anyone in the audience who maybe hasn't experienced a really great Web3 game or Web3 gaming use case yet should go and check out?
I'm not the biggest gamer in the world, but I'm a developer, and I like talking to Web3 developers and game developers, and I'm more excited about what all the different opportunities it is for them to build into their game considering Web3. Like those are the exciting things to me. When a technology changes, when new things become capable, that's what excites me as a developer, is the ability to start playing around with those things and building in things that maybe the user hasn't seen before. So that's what I'm excited about. Not really kind of what games are already out there and what they're doing. I like the tech side of it, the developer side.
Okay, well, Eric, let me pose this question to you. What's the most exciting tool that's being built for Web3 gaming?
Probably MetaMask Unity SDK. So the Unity SDK, we have SDKs for any platform that you could be on. So whether you're building in Unity, we have an Unreal SDK coming out soon. We have a JavaScript SDK if you're a web developer, and Android coming soon, and iOS Swift SDK already. So no matter what platform you're building on, we have the ability to connect to MetaMask Mobile with a few lines of code, installing that SDK in a few lines of code. And then even on the web, like you can connect to extension or mobile. So that's what these SDKs enable. And if you start playing around with them now and getting them into your project, then you're also going to benefit from the new features whenever we start releasing new features with the SDK and more components and stuff.
To go back to your original question about Web3 gaming use cases I'm excited for. So I'd say there's a range that I've found pretty inspiring. The first of those, going back in the day, I was really inspired by Dark Forest. It used zero-knowledge proofs to create a provably fair fog of war in games. And there were definitely some technical challenges if you followed their game with implementing this in recent days. But zero-knowledge proofs are a way to do provably fair game types, and it's a pretty exciting thing. The second is we have a really great title, Another World, which has built a metaverse, a metaverse world shooter. There's many different aspects to what they're building, but people can carry NFT assets across many different game worlds into one common game and have them all be represented in one common game, which is a way for them to hack their growth and attract people from other games. And the last of those I'll say is I'm really excited about both Shrapnel and Dead Drop, which are extraction shooters, where these are high stakes games. And I think we'll see a lot of Web3 games where there is serious outcomes to winning or losing the games. And Web3 assets really lend themselves well to these kinds of high stakes things. And we've seen demand from players for these like Elden Ring, Fire Emblem. These games are really popular right now because they're games that have like really major outcomes that come in them. And Web3 and NFTs are a great way to start to really represent that in a fundamentally fair way.
All right, so if you want to experience Hyperplay, you can do that at the Game 7 booth. You can actually go and use Hyperplay right now. And Jacob, you said the alpha is available. How can people experience it? Where should they go?
Yeah, come download Hyperplay at hyperplay.xyz, or come try it here at the Game 7 and Hyperplay booth. Shout out to Game 7. They're the DAO where we were incubated. There's another really wonderful product there as well, which is Summon, which is a reputation protocol for games. We didn't have time to get into that, but I did want to give them a special shout out. It's a really, really awesome thing, and we're building a whole platform. And come talk to the MetaMask team. Their MetaMask SDK is also available for mobile apps. So even though Hyperplay is on desktop, the MetaMask also has wallet solutions that can persist with mobile games as well.
Yeah, MetaMask.io/SDK if you want to check it out.
Jacob, Eric, thank you very much for that fireside chat. Building interoperable game worlds. If everyone could give them a round of applause. Yay! And enjoy your lunch. Thanks, everyone.